it was when I was married. I had children at home, and my husband and I were having some marital issues, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so if I hadn't had kids at that time, I would have figured out somewhere to go besides home.
Right.
But so on the way home, I would stop by Burger King, and I would get to the drive-through and I would order 2 Whopper meals with fries and a drink. And I didn't want them to think it was all for me. So I would make up a story like they really even cared,
Yeah.
And I would say, well, wait a minute, let me see. Did he really say he wanted a Coke, or did he say? I would say all kinds of stuff so they wouldn't think it was all for me. So anyway, I would get it. I would eat it on the way home, and I would stop at a service station on the way home, and I would throw all the evidence away so that nobody would know. I would put the windows down, even if it was in the winter, so that the smell of the food would get out of the car. No, all the evidence would be gone, right?
Yeah.
So it didn't take long of doing that to really pack on the weight.
Hello, beautiful beings. Welcome to Let's Create the Revolution Together. My name is Marigold, and I'm your host on this human journey that we're all here to experience. I've created this podcast because I wanted to show the world how vibrant and fulfilling life can actually be when we're creating our reality from alignment. Want to know how to get there? Well, you just got to stay tuned, because every Wednesday we're going to meet new people that are shifting their reality to create a ripple effect of transformation. We're all here to evolve, and I think that every experience we encounter is an opportunity to grow. That's why I specialize in helping people bringing more awareness into their lives so they can actually transform their experience, small and or big, into learnings. So I say, let's create that revolution together, one experience at a time. Hey, you guys. This week on Let's Create the Revolution Together, we have an amazing discussion about food addiction. And we're talking with Vickie Poole, which is an amazing podcaster as well. And before we go into this next episode, I wanted to give a shout out to those amazing women that were present for my mother's workshop. So I want to thank you, all of those women that were there. It was so great to share that moment with you. And it is the first of so many more of those workshops. So in the rebranding, there's going to be a membership for women, especially mothers, because I feel like we need to be together, we need to talk more to each other, and we need to support each other. So if you're a mother and you feel called to sharing your stories with other mothers and feel that support and be part of some kind of a revolution, a motherhood revolution, if we can say, reach out to me if you feel called to do that, because it's going to be so, so cool. So I'm going to leave you to this amazing episode, and please like, share, and comment. And if you really, really want to help this podcast, you can go ahead and rate the podcast on Spotify with stars, and with on Apple Podcasts you can write a review, or you can just drop some stars as well. So I hope you enjoyed this episode. See you guys later. Hello, beautiful beings. Today on Let's Create the Revolution Together, I have the pleasure to introduce you to Vickie Poole. Her mission here is to help women stop dieting and start eating to thrive while gaining confidence, joy, and peace. So if you're interested in changing your relationship to food, she actually just released a new ebook a few weeks ago, and I linked it in the description down below, so you can go ahead and download that. Or you can also reach out to her at the Enlightened Peach on Instagram. And of course, all of her links are in there in the description down below. So you can just go ahead and click on one of those. She and I met in a program we were both in. And she reached out to me and invited me to be on her podcast, which is called Today's Dreams, Tomorrow's Reality. It was my third experience on being on a podcast, and I loved it. It was actually a revelation to be on her podcast. And so when I say that every experience we are encountering is an opportunity to grow and to learn, I actually mean that, and I apply that to my own life every day. So I took that experience of being on her podcast and I actually created my own podcast, which you're listening to right now. I couldn't be happier with the result and with just keep on turning into my intuition and acting on that. So it was very fun to be on her podcast. And I'm actually going to link our episode together in the description down below so you can just take a look because it was such a fun episode to do. So today I decided to return the favor to her so she can share her incredible story for you to hear. So grab yourself something to drink, make yourself comfortable, and let's create that revolution together with Vickie Poole. Hey, Vickie.
Hey, how are you? Thank you
I'm
so much for inviting me on today.
Yeah, it's such a pleasure to have you here. And I'm so glad we're going to dig in your story.
I know it's a
Because
little different being on the other side, isn't
I know,
it?
right? I feel exactly the same. I remember when I was on your podcast, it was very different from hosting and creating one.
Yeah.
So thank you for inviting me on your podcast. And I'm very happy to have you on mine today. So, we wanted to talk about food and the relationship we have with food and how sometimes we can use food as a replacement for, I don't know, how to deal with our emotions. Sometimes
Yeah,
it's just
joy,
easier.
love, even anger. I mean, every
Right.
emotion there is, we can find a reason to eat because of it.
Yes, and how
Yeah.
food can actually become some kind of an addiction as much as drugs or alcohol or all kinds of other substance that we're taking. And sometimes we forget about food and our relationship with food is very important. So
Yeah. And,
and
on that strain, there's a workshop that I do periodically, and it's about kicking the sugar habit.
yes.
And one of the things that's amazing to me when I do this workshop is there's a scientific fact that sugar, in most instances, can be more addictive than heroin.
Yeah.
And so the difference I think that happens with us as people, because we're eating all the time, we can't just kind of, you know, stop. Like if you're an
Yes.
alcoholic or a drug addict, it may not be easy, but you can stop it and never touch it. But if you were to say, you can't have this anymore, but once a week, they would never be free. And we
Yes.
do it every day.
Yes.
So it's
Yes.
mind-boggling when you think about it.
Yes. Yes, it's a tricky one. It's a tricky one since, as
Yeah.
you said, we need it. We need food. And so we need to heal our relationship with food.
That's it. Yes.
Yes. And so, yeah, so let's begin at the first time you did something that didn't feel aligned with you in relationship with food.
Well, I was in the third grade the first time I remember thinking I needed to lose weight. And my father was always on some kind of diet. So maybe it was because of that. But whatever reason, I was not a fat child by any means. So I didn't need to lose weight, but I thought I did. So I remember I'm only in the third grade. So I opened the fridge and I saw my dad all the time doing a meal substitute, which is kind of like Slim Fast. Back then it was Slender, I think is what it was. And so as a third grader, I could read very well, but the cognitive understanding of certain things was not there. So I read the back label and it said if you drink this as a meal replacement that you would lose weight. So in my mind, I thought, well, I want to lose a lot. So I drank 3 of them. And they weren't that great to start with anyway. So how I got all 3 of them down, I do not know. But man, did my dad get angry at me for drinking his Slender. And that's the first time. And I don't think I even really realized for a while that that wasn't aligned with me because it felt like that's what my dad does. That feels like a natural thing, right?
Yes.
It wasn't till years later that when I would look back at it, I think, damn, why would I do that? And especially when I looked at pictures of myself and said, I wasn't fat at all. Why did I feel fat? But then, I think we get this image of ourselves, and I think that's basically that's what happens to people that are anorexics. They keep seeing themselves in the mirror and they're fat, they're fat, they're fat. So they stop eating because they're trying to match what they want to be, but their mind doesn't see it. So I mentioned once that, there was so many times in my life that something would stressful would come up. And I wouldn't even like it was a conscious thing of I need to eat to take care of this. It was just something I did. So all through my life, there's holiday pictures, of and other times that I can look at and I can see this is the time I was really stressed about this. I lost some more weight. Then I'm stressed again, blow back up. And it just kept going. And um, so there were many, many situations that I went through. And some of them were very stressful. Sometimes they were small, but
Right?
for whatever reason, that was my go-to. And like you and I had talked before about it kind of comes from a lot of times when we're a kid and we go to the doctor's office and we're nervous, they give us a sucker or something. And
Yeah.
they've gotten better about it now. They give you a little prize, but they're still giving you a something that makes you not feel the feels, so it's the same
Yes.
kind of thing. It's just not a food item. So that's where the shopaholics come from. Uh, but for me, it was food. And then, it got to where, you're as my mom, if I wasn't feeling well or whatever, or got stung by a bee or scraped my knee or anything, it was here's a cookie, you'll feel better. And they don't intentionally say, let me do this for you so that you'll be a foodaholic later in life and have all these problems. But it's just the thing that we go to. So I think today's generation, I think, does so much better than that
Yes.
for their children, because I see videos all the time of them communicating about emotions and these different things. And I'm hoping that is the general rule and not just a little specific spot. But
Yes.
in that case, maybe this won't be an emotional eating issue, in years down the road. But in my
Yeah.
life, it's always been there. Oh,
Yes, and we didn't have like social media back then, and so the yeah, the relationship with soothing, like I feel like a lot of self-soothing right now is done with our phones, and we have this on our hand, which is another subject matter with is so
mm-hmm.
interesting as well. But I feel like food was the most accessible
Yeah.
thing for us as children, and for my, like, I remember my grandparents, like my grandmother was always cooking something sweet, and every time I was going there was something sweet, and it was like, I don't know, some kind of reassuring to
Mm-hmm.
have that, to have this pie or this cake that my grandmother did, and it was tasting so good. And so, and it's all like turning back to our memories and how we were feeling at that time and how we felt while eating that. And I
Mm-hmm.
remember I've seen studies for McDonald's, and how
They
the
were so
kids,
brilliant, weren't they?
yes, and as kids, when we were going to get like our happy meals, like it just like imprinted it in us, some happy memories of like being treated, like, oh,
Yeah.
like this is a treat, and I'm going there with like this specific person, or like this is. And so when you're sad, and I can like, it has been a journey for me to like just like go over that and heal
Mm-hmm.
that. But
Well,
I
it's
remember.
funny. You mentioned about the McDonald's because years ago I heard this motivational speaker. He said he was talking about the food addiction thing that we all have, taking care of our emotions in that way. He said that he talked about how the brilliant marketing tactic that McDonald's had with having that little prize in each one of the boxes, because half the time the kids didn't even want the food, but they'd eat it anyway. So what he said was, if you wanted to raise children who would not be food addicts, um, what you would do is every time they opened one of those boxes, you'd pinch them really hard and they would start associating that with pain instead of pleasure. So I just,
Right.
it's not like you're going to do that, but I just thought it was very interesting that it is true. And, a lot of things, like you can smell certain things and it takes you back to a place, our sense of smell and our sense of taste are just so amazing for just whooping us right
Yes.
back into that place where we were when we experienced it.
Yeah. Yeah. And for some of our experience that are more traumatizing, like it's so easy to just like cut ourselves from our consciousness, I would say, like to our sensitive side and want to numb ourselves when we're going
Mhm.
through those extreme. I remember when my mother died, I was 17 and I just started to eat so much. And I see picture of myself when I was at that age. I was 17. I was like wanting to go in bars and dance, and it felt so uncomfortable for me because I was the fat girl in the group, because I felt so much in distress, and food was my go-to at that time because I was in like this, like I discovered drugs a little later. And so I went
So
down that path.
switched one poison for another.
Yes, exactly. But at that time, food was my poison. And I remember like sneaking downstairs, and we had this huge like refrigerator where we kept like all kinds of um single packages of like cakes, that you can bring into your lunch. And I was just like sneaking them into my room and just like eating them all, and then um so yeah, so I reached like a really heavy weight at that time, and I wasn't aware that I was doing that
Yeah,
because
yeah,
I was so much in pain and in distress that it was just easier to go to that instead
yeah.
of just like even asking myself, is something going on?
Yeah. Well, most of the time when we're going through something like that, we don't have the presence of mind to ask ourselves questions. That all
Exactly.
comes later, if we're lucky. And I think that's where having a coach a lot of times comes in because like I say, and this may be offensive to some people, but I say we do not see our shit when we're in it. We only
Yes.
see it when we're outside of it or somebody else can show it to us. And that's where having a support system is amazing. Um, but I've had two major instances in my life that I recognized later what I was doing.
Yeah.
And if it's okay, I'll just go ahead and share both of these. One of them's a
Yes.
little quicker story than the other one. But one time it was when I was married. I had children at home, and my husband and I were having some marital issues, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so if I hadn't had kids at that time, I would have figured out somewhere to go besides home.
Right.
But so on the way home, I would stop by Burger King and I would get to the drive-through and I would order 2 Whopper meals with fries and a drink. And I didn't want them to think it was all for me. So I would make up a story like they really even cared,
Yeah.
And I would say, well, wait a minute, let me see. Did he really say he wanted a Coke or did he say, I would say all kinds of stuff so they wouldn't think it was all for me. And like now when I think about that, I think that was the most retarded thing. Well, retarded is not the right word. I'm sorry. It is the most asinine thing to do because they don't care. So anyway, I would get it. I would eat it on the way home and I would stop some at a service station on the way home and I would throw all the evidence away so that nobody would know. I would put the
Mm.
windows down, even if it was in the winter, so that the smell of the food would get out of the car. No, all the evidence would be gone, right?
Yeah.
So it didn't take long of doing that to really pack on the weight. I
Right.
mean, pack on the weight, right? Um, and so I ended up getting a divorce. And once I got the divorce, the weight started coming off. But,
Mm.
then the story that you know about is with my granddaughter. And just to let people in on what happened is my son and his girlfriend, well, to be honest with you, when he introduced me to her the first time, I didn't even register her name because I thought, You know, it's just another girlfriend. This is
Right.
insignificant. I don't need to remember the name. And I know that sounds like a terrible thing to think, but I did, you know. And so it uh, probably a month or so later, he called me and told me that she was pregnant.
Hmm.
And, you know, and at that point I thought, okay, now I got to remember her name. And, but I was very excited about being a grandparent. You know,
Hmm.
I was just, the idea was amazing. So I did everything I could. I took her shopping for maternity clothes. I even invited her to stay in my home with me for a while so I could make sure that she was eating right because she was a high risk pregnancy. And,
Hmm.
so that ended up after having her in the house for a while, her and my son ended up moving away. And when they moved into another place, I would go and visit and talk to them and all. But one day, he, um, her mother called me and said that that she was having pains and that they needed to go to the doctor or to the
Hmm.
emergency room.
Right.
And so, and it was not time for her to be having the baby. So I dropped everything. I was at work and I went to go get them and take them at least to the doctor or something to be checked out. And just as soon as I get to the driveway, which is a very long driveway, I get to the driveway, my cell phone rings and it's my son. And he's just very overly, you know, anxious in his
Mhm.
voice, and he's almost yelling, and he says, "I just delivered the baby. What do I do with the umbilical cord?" And I
Mhm.
think, "Holy shit," you know? I said, "Don't do anything. I'll call 911. I'm right here, almost there." So I called 911. I get to the house. I'll run upstairs where they are, and the baby is still attached to the umbilical cord. It's laying on her stomach, and the baby's almost a blue color. And so when I'm talking to the emergency person and she tells me to go and check and see if the baby's, you know, alive, and I do, and the baby moves, and she says, "Well, massage the baby. It just needs to have some movement." So I'm massaging the baby. Then the mom starts screaming with all these pains. So she says she's trying to deliver the afterbirth. So I'm massaging the mom's belly and I'm massaging the baby. I'm massaging the mom's belly and the baby. It was amazing, you know, and the adrenaline is just flying, right?
Right.
And so then when the paramedics get there, you know, they come in, they cut the umbilical cord and they hand her to me. And it's like, oh my God, I could not believe how
Mm.
it felt to have this little tiny baby. I mean, she was
Oh,
little tiny.
oh.
And so they put the mom on the stretcher, they put the baby with her, and then they go to the hospital. So I go there and sit with her a little bit. Well, the next day when I come back to visit, the baby's in the intensive care for the babies. I whatever the hell it's called, and and so we go in there and we visit, and we go back to the room where the mom and my son are, and
Mhm.
her other child is one of her other children is there, and you know some other people, and these two women walk in and they've got this uh, folder, whatever the hell.
Yeah.
I can't. My mind's not working with that. And so they stop and they look very um, like authority. They have some kind of authority here. You know, they look,
Right.
and so as they come in, you know, they have this stern look on their face, and one of the women looks at the birth mother and says, "You know, we can't let you take this baby home. And you know why." And as soon as she says that, my heart starts pounding. I thought, what the hell? You know?
Mm.
And she turns and looks at me and she says, "Can you take her?" I said, "I'm not her mother. I'm his mother." And she said, "We know who you are. And we've already checked you out. Can you take her?" And I mean, everything's going through my mind. And I said, "Yes." And she said, "Can we step out of the room for a moment?" So we step out of the room and she explains to me that because it was a home birth and just different things, they decided to do some blood work, and they discovered that the mother had meth in her system. And at this point, they didn't know how much was in the baby's system, but because of that, she could not take her home. And so I said, well, I was fixing a room so the baby could visit on occasion. I guess I'm just going to have to, you know, get really busy on this to make room.
Right.
And so from that point on, she was my baby. And so my daughter and I rallied together to, do whatever we needed to do. My daughter lived with me at home. She was an adult, and she was 20 at the time.
Mhm.
And so the day we, bring her home from the hospital, back up, just before that, we had a meeting with the pediatrician, and the pediatrician told us that she was a very at-risk baby because she
Mm.
was born addicted to meth. And he said, right now, we don't know how that's going to affect her so much. He said it could either make her very lethargic, or it could make her very, very agitated. And what happened to her was she was very lethargic.
Mm.
And so he had us wake her up every 3 hours of her life so that we could feed her, because he said, left to her own, she would just waste away and die. She would not wake up because it messes with the brain and the senses.
Mm.
And so every 3 hours, I had an alarm set. And so when I wasn't working, I had the baby. When I had the baby, my daughter was working. So we were able to fluctuate our schedules, and we had her where we didn't leave the house for the first 3 months of her life. It was her, and that was it. And I will share that the doctor told me, one of the pediatrician visits that we had, he said, your specialty is taking at-risk babies and making them look like nothing was ever wrong. He said, because today you would never know there was anything that had ever happened with this baby. So I was very happy with that. I loved her. She was my baby. And
Mm.
then I found out when she was 6 months, I got a call from DFACS, which is who is in charge of her because of the situation, right? So I'm
Yes.
kind of like her grandmother that's taking care of her for DFACS.
Right.
And they called me and told me that part of the program was to um, reunification. So one of the things they had to do was all these different steps to make sure that they could get the baby. And one of them, my son, had to have a paternity test.
Mm.
When they did the paternity test, he was not the father. And so they called to tell me, and I think this was like a Wednesday. I don't even remember. It's just such a mind blown thing. They called me and told me that they would be coming and picking her up on Friday. Oh my gosh, I am in tears. And I said, I don't care whether he's the father or not. This is my granddaughter. This
Yes.
is my granddaughter. And so I want to keep her. And she said, well, it's really not up to us right now. And so when I told my daughter, and remember, she's 20, she went and hid in her closet and cried and cried and cried. It was,
Mm.
oh, it was excruciating. Um, but then when they talked to the birth mother's family, none of them were in a position to take care of a baby. So
Right.
they said they would leave her with me, because if the unification was what was going to happen, there was no point in pulling her away from me, which is who she knows. So
Right.
I got to keep her. And it was amazing. I spent so much time with her. We had some of the most fun times. It's um it's I can't even describe, how it felt. And when she was almost 3, the birth mother was no longer with my son. She was with another gentleman, and gentleman is an extremely nice term for this person that she was with.
Mhm.
And she got a new attorney that told her that she had 3 children, had never been married, and didn't have custody of any of them. And so if she wanted to get her kid back, she better get married. So she did. She married him.
Mm.
And so when we went to court, and at this point, the defects had already said she was passing all of her urine screenings, but she failed the blood screening. And so they had talked to me and said that we can't let her have her. So we're going to go ahead and proceed with adoption. Are you okay with doing adoption? And I said, yes, she's my granddaughter. She calls me mommy.
Mm.
That's what she called me. Um, and then when they went to court with this new attorney, the the CASA worker and the defects workers told the judge that under no circumstances should she get custody of this baby. And that, in their opinion, it was more of an ownership thing that she wanted, not necessarily that she had this bond or anything.
Right.
And but the judge said he didn't care. This was a family's first state, and he granted her custody.
Mm.
And what happened to start with was that, so it was a transition, which is mind-boggling how they do this transition, but they told me that she would get, Alexis was my granddaughter's name. She would go with her birth mother and stepdad, for 10 days, and then she would come back home to me, till we went to the final, um, thing where they would grant the custody, right?
Right.
And so those 10 days were so excruciating for me. But what was so amazing was when they brought her home and I opened the door. I had been teaching her to call me Mommy Yaya, which I was going to be a Yaya, which means it's Greek for grandmother. So I had started transitioning her to call me Mommy Yaya, because if she's talking about me, I wanted to know. I didn't want her to say mommy or mama and her be meaning somebody else. So that's
Right.
what I did. So when she got there, I opened the door and she just almost leaped out of their arms into my arms and said, Mommy, yeah, I missed you. And she'd get my face like this and she would look at me and she'd say, I love you, I love you, I love you. And then she'd hug me really tight
Mm.
over and over and over. And so I brought her back in the house and they left. And so it was going to be 3 days before she had her permanently. And so we did all kinds of things that weekend. We went to the zoo, we went here, we went there, and just having her around my family and everybody that loved her so much. And then when she came to get her, the birth mother, she said that she realized how much Alexis loved me that day she dropped her off and what the bond was. So she wasn't going to cut me off completely. I would
Mm.
still get to see her on the weekends. And so that's how we started. On the weekend, I would go and I would pick her up on Friday. And then every now and then something would happen. I have no clue what it was, but they'd ask me to keep her for a week. And I'd keep her for a week, or I would keep her for a few extra days, or, it would stretch
Right.
sometimes. So I didn't care. The more I had her, the better.
Right.
And so her husband started having a lot of jealousy with our bond.
Mm.
And so he started wanting to push me away a little bit more. So when I would take her and drop her off on Sunday afternoon, she would hug me. And in my ear, she'd say, Mommy, yeah, I want to be with you. I want to go with you. Don't make me stay. I want to go.
Mm.
And I'd have to say, baby, I would love to, but I can't. This is how it has to be. But I will be back next week. And so it was so excruciating to drop off this love that I didn't realize it at the time. But on the way home, I would stop by Dunkin' Donuts and I would
Mhm.
get, holy shit, sometimes I would get 6 donuts. Sometimes I would get 3. It depended on how upset I was.
Right.
And I would get them mostly eaten before I even got home. And I got to where I was doing that and hiding that evidence too.
Mm.
So it was, probably we did that for 6 or 7 months before they cut me off completely, and I was no longer able to see her. And then I really started eating more and eating more and eating more, and I had put on so much weight that I looked at myself one day and I thought, "Holy moly, what the hell have I done? I've got to make a change. I have got to do something because I've been doing this all my life. Maybe
Mm.
not to this extent, but a lot." And so then I started thinking, what is somebody called that helps you with this? And I thought, well, maybe it's a health coach. I don't really know what a health coach is. So I looked it up and it sounded like that's what it would be.
Mm.
And so instead of hiring a health coach, I thought, I'll become a health coach because if I become a health coach, then it'll make me do this stuff because I have to learn it as I'm teaching it, right? And if I can make it work for me, it's worth whatever the hell I have to pay for it. And then so in the beginning it was just for me. And I'll have to share. It's like I can do things for a purpose a lot of times. And so the purpose was learn all this stuff, make myself do it. And when I there was one time before when I decided I wanted to make a change. And at that time I needed to release about 75, 80 pounds. And I decided that I had to do something. So I signed up for a half marathon when I couldn't even walk to the mailbox. And I thought, I've got this many months to train. I can walk it. I can do that. And I did, amazingly so. And I lost a
Amazing.
lot of weight in the process. So this was kind of the same thing. It's like, I'm going to pay all this money to learn
Mhm.
this. I'm doing it. So I did. And I didn't lose weight right in the beginning because in the beginning, it was the mindset. It was changing the way I looked at food and the way I looked at me and my body and that kind of thing. And so I went on and got a master's in that program, and which was another year-long course. And
Mm.
then after that, I could feel every now and then that I would still start gravitating toward emotional eating. And it's
Mm.
like, I know all these things. How is this keep gripping me?
Mm.
I know. And that's when I thought, so what would help me to maybe dislodge this habit that I've got and put
Yes.
something else in there? And that's when I started researching again and I discovered hypnosis. And it wasn't the first time I'd heard of hypnosis. I had had hypnosis twice before.
Mm.
And one of them was for losing weight, and one it was an entertainment thing on a stage, so very different things. But when I learned hypnosis, that's when I really started understanding how we are working on autopilot most of the time. We make choices just because that's what we remember doing and that's what people have said, and we just adopt things thinking they're
Mm, mm,
true.
mm.
And so it was very beneficial to me, and that's one of the things I do in my courses is that I help a lot with hypnosis to re it's almost like we kind of pull out some of the old stuff that nobody really needs or it's not serving you. You
Yeah.
keep the knowledge, you lose the emotional attachment to it.
Yeah.
And then we put in something that's more beneficial. I know
I
that was
love
a
that.
long story, but
No, no, I love that. I love that. I love so oh my God, I have so many. Ah, so like the stress level of that situation you were in were so high. Do you remember when you started to eat? Was that at that point where you were like doing weekends, or was that before that?
it was when I started doing the weekends because
Yeah.
it was I would drop her off with her holding on to me and almost being pulled away.
Yes.
And And all I could feel when I left was that I was leaving this baby, and in my mind, it felt like I was leaving her with the wolves,
Yeah.
you know? And so it was soothing me, and in some way, it felt like I was soothing her too.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And maybe also that feeling of emptiness,
Yeah.
of
I was
like
looking
the
for love.
emptiness.
Yes, I was
Like
looking for
in
soothing love. That's what I was
yes.
looking for because that's what I dropped off.
Right. Right.
Yeah.
Because I don't know if you've made that correlation, but when in your first story, you were going for Burger King, which is like
Yeah.
salty, greasy food. And for me, like I relate that kind of food more to anger, and this sugar, it's like love, and like,
Yeah.
you want to feel like hold on to, like you want something to cover you, to like
Yeah. Like a warm
love
hug.
you.
Yeah.
Yes,
Yeah.
yes, like a heavy like blanket that you put on
Mhm.
your, and literally you put that blanket with the
Yes.
fat, you know, and you
Mhm.
protect yourself from the exterior coming at you, right?
Yeah.
So I did you do that
I did,
correlation?
I did,
Yes, that's
and when
amazing.
I remember when I was really going through and thinking about all those things, I was I was kind of surprised, every now and then when I did the Burger King thing, I would throw an apple pie in there, but most
Yeah,
of the time it was just the salty,
greedy.
dense thing. I
Yes,
just wanted something that felt grounded,
yes.
that felt permanent, and because I was feeling like everything was about to change in my life, and
Hmm.
I wasn't sure whether it was good or bad. And like I said, if my kids had not been there, I probably would have went somewhere else instead of home.
Yeah,
Just because, and whereas with Alexis, I was wanting to hold her more. I was wanting more of her and all the sweetness and the love that I felt with her around.
yeah,
And to this day, I can feel when, even though I do the hypnosis and I do that every now and then, I have this inkling, that let me do this because I need this. And then, but I've gotten to the place where now I can say, you know, this is where this is coming from. And I give myself permission to make a decision that fits me at the time, whether it's
yeah,
to go ahead and eat the damn pie, the piece of pie,
yeah,
and be satisfied with that or a few bites, or to just walk away. Because I think we've talked about it. One of the things I do in my programs with my clients is I have them not make any food that's completely taboo. It's not that you can't eat sweets anymore or anything like that. Now, unless you've got some kind of medical condition that,
yeah.
means that, it's going to be detrimental to your life if you
Yes.
indulge in that, then, we need to work on that a little harder to get that desire gone.
Hmm.
But it's because it's almost like, if anybody says, don't think of a pink elephant, you're going to think of a pink elephant no
That's
matter
for
what
sure.
you do. And it's the same with food. If somebody says, well, you can no longer eat sweets, you can
Mm,
no longer eat this, you can no longer eat that, that's going to be the only thing you are focused on. And it's going to
yes.
be in your desire, oh, so bad. And so it's really important to change the way you feel about all the food.
Yeah, to realize what what you're looking to gain too, because when you're trying to gain love, there's other ways to give yourself
Yes.
love or to go and reach out for love. And like I remember in my own story, I used to be a smoker,
Mhm.
and I wasn't like a huge smoker, but I was smoking like 3 to 4 cigarettes every day. And at one point, it felt very misaligned. And I was, every time I was trying to force myself out of that habit, it wasn't working. And it felt very like violent almost, like to just like take candy from a baby, and you're like, nah. And it felt like, it felt like aggressive, almost. And I found that book that was almost like it was hypnotic. I have to say, the way it was written, and I was reading through that book for to help me stop smoking. And I remember I felt it was working, and I was like a little afraid, because what's going to be on the other side of me not reaching out for that cigarette.
Mhm.
And I realized that at that time I needed that cigarette because I needed to have time off of, like, I was going outside to smoke, and so I needed time off, like being always with my family. So not that I don't love them, I
Right.
love them to
Well, we
death.
all need our alone time.
Exactly. And I didn't have that. And so smoking was my way of getting that in a really misaligned habit, but it
Mhm.
was still where I was going. So realizing that I needed more time for myself while I was reading that book, and I like that moment where I was like, oh shit, it's gonna work. I know it's gonna work. I know I'm not gonna smoke that again. And then what's going on the other side of that veil, and to build something else up instead of feeling restricted. it helped
Mhm.
me so much, you know, and to just like acknowledge that I needed some time for myself, you know, and silence
Mhm.
without anyone saying, "Mommy," just silence for 5 minutes. I don't need like a whole week, you know,
Yeah, yeah.
but like sporadic moment that I actually need to just regain my mental health, you know, like
Yes.
my so by understanding that with that book that was very hypnotic, that was
Mhm.
like making me take responsibility for what's my real need behind the bad habit. It just helped me so much. And I feel like it's the same with food. When you realize that you eat out of anger or out of wanting some comfort or some love, you can address the real thing out there,
Mhm.
you know?
Yeah, but having done this, you and I both, that it's not always an easy thing to do.
Nope.
And so a lot of times something that's easy to do is easy not to do. And this is both. It's simple
Yeah.
when you look at it, but it's not easy. And
Yeah.
and yeah, and so it's one of those things that to take a look at yourself from up above and see what you're doing and how it's affecting you and everything is sometimes people don't want to see. They prefer, even though they're miserable, they prefer to stay with what they know and not step out of that. And and one of the things that I work with my when I'm working with my clients too, we also have a story of who we are. And
Yes.
and so if you're a person like I was that was always, you know, heavy and then thin and then heavy and thin, so I knew in my mind that if I got thin, I was going to get heavy again because it was just going to happen. I didn't really understand why. I just knew it would.
Right.
And so it's like one of the things that I liken it to, and it's not my story. It's I've heard it other places, so I'll just preface that. I didn't make this up. But it's like we have a thermostat for our life,
Hmm.
for our body, the things that we do, our finances, our relationships. There's a thermostat on our wall somewhere that has you weigh 120 pounds, you weigh 220 pounds, and wherever that falls in between, or maybe it's at the 220, but
Hmm.
that's where your thermostat's set. So just
Yeah.
like when you've got your air conditioner set on 70 and it's 90 degrees outside, you open all the windows, the air conditioners are going to come on and it's going to bring it back. Um,
Hmm.
but if close all those windows, once it gets calibrated back to that set temperature, that's where it's going to stay unless you alter it in some way. And
Yeah.
we do the same thing with our lives.
Yes.
If like I was always feeling like no matter what I was going to do, I liked being thin, but I would end up being fat and I just knew it. I was usually the fattest person in the room. And, I didn't like it, but
Mm.
that's what I would go back to because that's where my thermostat was set. That's what I thought I was. And so even though I wanted to get thin, I wouldn't stay there.
Yeah.
And so that's where we have to adjust how we have ourselves set in our minds. What is
Yes.
our normal and create a new normal.
Yes. And to realize that we actually have that power to recreate our mind is just like,
Mhm.
I don't know, it's just empowering, right? It's
It
just like
is.
you can actually do it. Like you don't have to keep on that going back to that thermostat limit.
Yeah.
You don't have to. You
Yeah.
really don't have to. You can
You can
really
adjust it.
you can adjust it. You can set it up for something else.
Yeah.
And but it's true. Like you have to do that work. You have to be willing to change and to
Yeah.
step outside that comfort zone where we're comfortable. It's a comfort zone.
Yeah.
So
Well,
sometimes
I
it's
had a
scary.
conversation with someone just the other day about this and the comfort zone and everything. And this may just be a Southern phrase. She said it was, I don't know. But I used to hear growing up, the devil you know is better than the devil you don't know.
Mm,
And what that implies is that, you're in this place that feels really uncomfortable. You
yeah.
change and it might be worse. So you might want to
Yes.
just stay where you're at.
Yes.
And that's where I think a lot of people kind of get stuck. It's because even though this feels like hell, it's the hell I know. And if I step out of it, that might be even more comfortable. Or not that that would be uncomfortable, but the getting there could be very uncomfortable, you
Yeah,
know?
and the not knowing too can
Yeah.
be triggering a lot, you know. I don't know what's going to be out there. Like I said, with me not smoking, like what am I going to do when I finish my meal?
Yeah.
What am I going to do? I remember asking my brother, I was like, he wasn't smoking, and I was, what do you do after you eat your dinner? And he was like, I don't know, the dishes. and, and I was like, you know, it was like, this was such a comfort zone for me. This was such an habit that
Mhm.
I couldn't even see myself not doing it.
Yeah, yeah. I was a smoker one time, for many, many years. I was in my, I guess, my mid-20s when I quit smoking. But it was like, for me, it was not a hard thing to do because I quit for vanity's sake. Um, because I was a hairstylist and I had a client come in who had horrible, horrible wrinkles around her mouth. And at that time, people smoked in your chair. They came in
Yeah,
and sat in the salon and they smoked all the time. They'd be puffing it up in your face. And, that's just how it was. And
right.
this woman lit a cigarette and pursed her lips around it. And I could see that's exactly what it was. And I thought, oh my God, how old is this woman? And when she went to check out, I looked, she was 5 years older than me. And I thought, oh my God, in 5 years, I'm going to look like that because she
Oh my
looked
god.
very old. And so I threw my cigarettes away on the way home and I never touched another one. But it was nothing to do with health or anything. But I will say, even though I threw them away and I didn't have the desire for one, that habit was like I ended up I would get a straw and I
Yeah,
would chew on a straw because it was like there was something I was supposed to be doing, because I was so used to this. Then I had to
right.
find a substitute. I would have a toothpick or I'd have a straw or I'd have
Yeah,
something. It took a while to get to where I didn't have to have this thing coming out of my mouth. It was
right.
really bizarre.
Yeah, yeah. I relate to that. And oh my god, for me it was more of like, you know, when you were smoking, you were kind of rebel, you know, you were
Yeah,
kind of, you know,
yeah,
grungy, like a little
yeah,
edgy, you know.
yeah.
And I was an artist
I'm
and I
cool.
really, right. And I was like drinking my wine and smoking my cigarette and throwing paints, you know, like naked in my living room. And I felt badass, you know, and
Yeah, yeah,
I was attached to that version of myself,
yeah,
of like that badass, like rebel person. And so I didn't want to quit that person, you know?
yeah.
So that's what I was holding on to. And I
How
remember
long
I
did
was,
it take you to realize you could still be that person without the cigarettes?
it was really quick. Like that book that I read, it was the bomb. It was like, it was
Mhm,
working really quick and it was addressing the real thing, you know? And it was like, it was so efficient that I didn't have to lose myself, that I didn't have to, I could just like bring whatever part I like in myself forward and leave
mhm,
all of those that I don't like just back, you know. I can leave them back there. I don't have to go ahead and like to go back to pick them up again. Like I don't actually need that.
mhm.
And I remember for a while I quit smoking, and like a year after that I was like surrounded by smoker. And I remember it was a trigger, you know. And I started to smoke those herbal, like it wasn't uh tobacco. It was like I was not able to go back there. It was like I would throw up, like it was just,
Oh, the smell is disgusting once you've been a
yes.
smoker.
Yes, and I don't know if it was the book, the hypnosis of that book that made it like so disgusting, but I couldn't, like, if people were smoking around me, I was okay. I wasn't like that like ex-smoker, like, oh, stop smoking around me. It's so disgusting. You know, I wasn't like that. But I did try it
I
back
kinda
once.
was for a
Oh,
while.
I did try it back once and I almost threw up, and I have this fear of throwing up. So I was like, hell no, like this is, I'm done with it. So like, and I remember I was like sitting with those people that were smoking, and I was like just smoking those little herbal uh just really short cigarette just to be like in the gang kind of. And it took me like a couple of months and I was done with that as well. It wasn't from like the habit or the addiction. It was just a social thing at that moment, and I just don't really crave it anymore. But I think it's all a matter of knowing where it comes from, and to address that instead of just trying to rip it away. It's the same thing with food. If, like you were saying, like, we don't if you're trying to make like a taboo around like pie, if that's like your poison your of choice. Like, so if it's pie, let's say it's pie, and you make it like a bad thing, then like your relationship is not healed,
Right.
and you have to go just a little deeper so you can like unfold the real deal. What
Right.
happened with those pies? Like, your grandma used to make them, and like your father was like beating your mother, and it's like in your house, and you were eating those pies, so you find comfort. Like, it's always like something very cool that I think we can access in those hypnosis session, and you can actually like tap into those things and just like realize where the roots are and what the
Hmm.
need is, and then address that need instead of like
Right. Well,
make that pie a devil, or
yeah.
make it like an addiction. You got a third choice.
Right. Well, I will say that you don't always, with hypnosis, have to go down to exactly what it is.
Oh.
You can just, there's an emotion that you're getting from it, and you can work on that so that you can discover other ways to get the emotion, because you
Mm.
don't always have to go back to the actual event that is the trigger to start with, because sometimes that's very traumatizing for some people.
Yes.
And so I don't want anybody to think that you have to go back and relive some
Yeah.
trauma, because you don't. There are ways as a hypnotist that I can help you with that. And even as a health and a life coach, we can visit things that help you without you experiencing
Hmm.
the same thing
Yes.
again. So it's really important to remember that we don't have to be in the moment. And we don't, sometimes you don't even can't even remember what that moment was. You've blocked it out for whatever reason. And if you have, it needs to stay blocked. And you just deal with what's come from it.
Yes. Yes, I love that. That's amazing. Yeah, to work in the now and to
Yeah.
not go back to the roots. I really like to go down there, but I
Yeah.
know it's not for everyone, and
Yeah, I
I
do that
love.
with some people. I'll take them into this regression stage. And one of my favorite things to do as a hypnotist is past life regressions. Those are really
Yes.
cool. And we
Yes.
cut some of the cords of things that are holding you back and all that stuff. But, there's lots of tools that we have access to
Yes.
help create a lot of this change. And I will say there are some people that are, nervous about hypnosis. And for those people, I say, well, let me explain it to you a little bit better. And if you're still nervous about it, I have a whole bunch of other stuff in my toolbox that I can work with you with.
Yes. Yes. Yes, and you can also like do that. For me, I know meditation is kind
Hmm.
of like it's not like hypnosis, but you get to a state of consciousness where you have impact really quickly. And so this is a great tool that is like not exactly hypnosis, but can actually help you tap into those area and like understand what is the real need behind the addiction.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
It can, some powerful tools we have.
Yes. Yes, and I love the diversify it is.
Hmm.
Like we can go do that diet, like, because maybe you want to.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Or we can do something else. And I love how the root of that is to recreate the relationship you have with food, since
Yeah.
it's vital. It's like you cannot just go ahead without it.
Yeah. Well, I feel like it's time for us to quit labeling everything because we're vegan, we're paleo, we're
Yeah.
vegetarian, we're, carnivore, we're all these things. And what we should just be is healthy. So
Yes.
I feel like it's important to learn what does good for our body because everybody's different. And when you think about it, children, when they're little, they know when they're hungry and when they want to eat. And
Yeah.
we're the ones that, as grown-ups, that start putting them in these little boxes of this is when we eat breakfast, this is when we eat lunch. We're not going to let you have a snack right now because then you won't eat your lunch.
Yeah.
And we put all these things in there, but most of the time, now there may be exceptions. Well, there are exceptions to everything. But most of the time, if you would let the children eat when they're hungry and, not force them to eat when they're not, they would grow up with a much healthier relationship with food
That's
because
yeah.
then they look at it as I'm stopping to eat because I'm hungry,
Yes.
and not as, for any other reason. It's not a certain time of day or something's happened or whatever. So it's interesting, that we have gotten so accustomed to how all this works. And I don't know if you've even done the research. You probably have, but the breakfast is the most important meal of the day was actually a marketing ploy by
Yeah.
cereal companies. There was never anything that was medically said that you had to eat breakfast early in the morning and all that stuff because going back in time before all of that came about, people ate. Sometimes they went and worked in the fields and everything and then came back and ate.
Yeah.
And when they ate, it wasn't even a breakfast food. Sometimes it was leftovers from the day before or things like that.
Right.
But the cereal companies wanted to sell more cereal. And so they got this thing together and they put it out there. And then all of a sudden, just people started adopting it as truth. One of
Yeah.
those other truths that's not really true.
Yes, exactly. And I want to testify on that children bit that you were just talking about,
Hmm.
because as an unschooler, like, we're pretty free in our schedule, and the relationship our kids have with food is it's pretty healthy, like they're gonna go ahead and do whatever like feels right for them in that moment. And when they get to that hungry state, they will just
Hmm.
like quit doing what they were doing and come in the kitchen and look what's in the fridge and take whatever feels good for them. And most of what we have in the fridge is chosen by all the family. So the kids have stuff they prefer in the fridge, and they're free to go and eat those things. And lately, my oldest daughter, she came up to me and she was like, I don't know what's going on, but I crave sugar. Maybe I need some love. You want to hug me? And I was like, all right, and she was like, but can I still eat the sugar? And I was like, yeah, go ahead. It doesn't really matter if you know what's going on, and you want
Yeah.
to choose that method to suit you, like, and you do it in consciousness and
Yeah.
awareness. Yeah, just go ahead, enjoy that toast with like chocolate on it or whatever, like maple
Yeah.
syrup
Yeah.
or whatever. It doesn't matter. But the way we raise them, that traumatizing, like, eat your lunch. Like, the other day I was actually joking and all my children were like, what the I was like, we had, like, they picked something in the grocery and it was like some cookies or something, and they want to eat it right away. And I just cooked something and I was like, you eat your dinner and then you eat your dessert after. And they were like, what? It was so unusual for me to say that. We all started to laugh because it
Yeah.
was just like, I was like, no, go ahead, eat your cookie. It doesn't matter. Eat your dinner after. It doesn't matter what
Yeah.
order you want to eat them on. Like, it doesn't matter at all. Just enjoy your food.
Yeah.
Have fun with it. Let's learn how to cook, how to like
That's
combine
a
those
that's a
smells.
wonderful example. I love, love, love that.
Yeah.
Because there are people that I know that as children they would hoard food and hide things and things like that
Oh
because
yeah.
their parents told them they couldn't eat certain things, because whatever they had in their mind that they couldn't eat it. And so they would hide stuff. And it's just like I hid the evidence of the food that I ate because I didn't mind eating it. I just didn't want people to know about it,
Yes.
because I didn't
Yes.
want to be reprimanded because here I
Yes.
was, this fat girl eating all this food and just getting fatter. And so it was,
Mm.
it's so wonderful to see that example that you have set with your children. And if you could do like a podcast just about that, you
Yeah.
would probably have a lot of people that would want to hear about it, because I know your unschooling stuff. I was fascinated with that when we did our podcast.
Yeah.
And the funny thing is, I'd never heard of it before, but after that, you know how things are. There were several people I ran into that's what they did. I know what that is.
Yeah. Yeah. It's a very cool lifestyle because it's allowing us to experiment life as we feel, as we know we want to experience it. So, and to give the just to give the right, but I'm not giving them the right, but like to allow my kids to experience life as they want. It's very empowering for them because they know that we're here if something is like not going in the way they want, but they have like the amplitude to actually experience stuff without us always being there in the back, don't do this, don't do this, don't do this.
Hmm.
It's more of how you want to do this. You want to do this. This is very dangerous. How can I help you get through it? How, like, you want to go ahead and, like, I have my stepdaughter will eat more junk food. And I'm like, all right, so you want to eat that? Let's do it in consciousness. Let's open our mind to what happened in your body, what happened in your digestive system, what happened in your mind, what happened in your sleep when you eat like that. Go ahead and eat them, and let's talk about this. Let's bring some awareness into the experience, and we can do that with everything, whether it's food or activities or screen time, or it doesn't matter, sleep schedule, it doesn't matter. Go ahead and experience it. And so, like, they that to bring that awareness into them, like, it builds something different, you
Yeah.
know for them as humans. Like, they're gonna
Yeah.
be adult too. Like,
Yeah.
they're gonna be.
Awareness is huge. Like I've got a client that's she's starting a program with me next month. And one of the things I told her, I said, don't change anything about what you're doing with your food right now, but I want you to have a journal and I want you to log everything that you eat, how much
Yes.
of it you eat. I said, no judgment, and put on there how you feel when you eat it. Because a lot of people aren't aware that they'll have a stomach ache and they think it's what they just ate, but sometimes it's what you ate 2 days ago.
Yeah.
Because sometimes it takes that long for it to go through your system. So keeping a journal like that with no judgment. I said, if you eat a bunch of stuff, just put it down. I said, I'm not going to judge you. You don't judge you. We're
Yes.
just discovering right now. That's all
Yes.
we're doing. And so between now and when we meet for our first actual session, she's going to come with all this information that we can address, how to actually work through this without judgment, without, you know, deprivation and all these things,
Yes.
to actually learn from the
Yeah.
experience. So it's just
Yes,
a total
exactly.
experiment. Yeah.
Yes, exactly. Because the experience are there to help us. Like, for me, it's like, yeah, it's as I said, like, you want to eat that junk food, let's go ahead and eat it. See how much acne you have on your face after that. See how much your bowel movement is. Let's
Mhm. If you're
just
able to
check.
sleep at all,
Yes, like, what's your mood when you're
Yeah.
eating those? Like, before, while you're eating them, and after. Let's see that. Let's just put some awareness, and then you can make the decision. You want to continue doing that with the awareness? Go ahead. Like, I'm always open. You want to go ahead with the awareness? That's amazing. You want to
Yeah.
stop with the awareness? That's amazing. Let's support each other into those into those process, because they're not always easy, and it's a process. So
Mhm.
they're going to be set back, they're going to be struggle, they're going to be some, but if we can be there, witness them, put awareness into those processes, and just be there, it doesn't matter, like it's just an experience we're
Yeah.
going through.
And to teach people that to not be constantly judging and condemning every single thing they
Mm,
do, because we, especially women, I'm sure there are men too, but women are held to such a different standard than what men are. You're too fat, you're too thin, you're too loose, you're not loose enough. All these,
yes.
all these different things, and so women just really become very hard on themselves, and that's why you can find women that you would almost think, oh my god, I would just love to look like that, and all they can see is the flaw, and
Yes.
you don't even see it.
Yes.
And so it's amazing that even the most aesthetically pleasing looking person still finds their flaws when they look in the mirror.
Yes.
And so it's almost like that's all we're focused on. And so it's learning how to focus on the beautiful things about yourself.
Yes.
And I even had this one girl many years ago that she couldn't even look at herself in the mirror and say, I love you, because all
Mm.
she could see was what's wrong in
Yes.
her mind. What is wrong? And so we had to do quite a few exercises to get to our place where she could look in the mirror and say that. But in the beginning, I had her just look in the mirror and I said, find one thing that you like. And she had, if I remember right, she had beautiful eyelashes, you know, and it's a very superficial thing, but it's a beginning, and
Yeah.
it's just finding the things that you can see about yourself that is amazing, because when it comes to whether someone's heavier or they're thinner, and it's the confidence the person has in who they are is what people gravitate to. It's not that they're exceptionally thin and beautiful or anything like that. You can take and put two people that are very polar opposites on what they look like, and the heavier set one has the most confidence, and they can go into a location and everybody's going to talk to that person.
Yeah.
But a lot of us, especially I know for myself, when I was at my heaviest, I felt like if I walked into a room and people looked at me, they were saying, "Oh my God, she's so fat,"
Mm,
you
mm, mm,
know?
mm, mm, mm.
And that
Yeah.
was my interpretation of any glance that I
Yeah.
got. And it could have been, I like her hair. It could have been anything, I like that
Yeah.
shirt, but all I saw was that.
Yeah.
And it comes from all that self-judgment, you know?
Yes. Yes. Learning how to own who we are and what we do. Like in Ayurveda, as an Ayurvedic wellness coach, we're always saying, you're better eating that big, juicy hamburger and you're loving it, enjoying it, like to your core, like you are in love with that hamburger, like for real, than to eat a salad that you ate and you're eating it and it's disgusting,
Yes, yes.
and so I'm not saying go ahead and eat all the burgers and always eat junk food. But if you want to make that choice of like loving what you're doing, it's the same as if you were to enter that room, that same room when you were fat, and owning who you were. No
Mhm.
one would ever like known you were fat, because they would look at you right in your eyes,
It's the
because you
essence of who
are,
you are, right.
yes, your
Yeah,
energy,
and
because when
it's
you
funny
own,
as you're talking about that, because one of the things I have my clients do is sometimes I'll even have them blindfold themselves and eat
yeah,
food so that they
yes,
can really get into the taste of things, and I tell them, "Make love to your food." I said,
yeah,
"Make people at the next table think, 'Oh my god, I want that,'" because and I even told one girl, I said, if you have, I said, just as you're tasting it, break it down. Ooh, I taste vanilla. I taste this, kind of like the wine people do when they can have a
yes,
sip, a little tiny taste of wine, and they can tell you all the different things that are in it.
yes,
Break that food down and enjoy it. And you really become quite the food snob, because then you notice you're not eating things just to eat them. You can taste something, you think, "Ooh, this is not what I thought it was gonna be," and you spit that shit out, right? It's
yes,
like you start learning, when you're not just eating for emotions and you start really making sure that it's something that satiates you, which is so much different than satisfies.
Yes.
And there are, so like with Ayurveda, there are scientific proven things that,
Yeah.
if you eat fast, if you eat where you're not really tasting the food and you're not, really enjoying the food, then your body's not registering what you ate. So then you
Yeah.
crave more and you crave more. And until you
Yes.
get it satiated, which is, like I said, a totally different thing than satisfied,
Yes.
it's a pleasure place, and
Yeah.
you can really give yourself an amazing pleasure by eating. And it doesn't mean you're eating all this amazingly fattening food. It just means
Yeah.
that you're enjoying the nuances of every bite of it.
Yes.
And one of the things it makes me think of too is I went on this, I've been on every diet known to man, I believe, except for the ones that have just been in the past 5 to 10 years, right? But I went on this one diet and you couldn't have any salt, right? So food started tasting really bad because I was so used to the salt. And I thought, well, no wonder you lose weight on this. Everything tastes like crap, you know? And because that's all I would always put so much salt on food. But after a while, when that salt taste was no longer with me,
Hmm.
food started tasting amazing. That's when I quit eating salad dressings because I started enjoying the ingredients in the salad. And I
Yeah.
started looking at salad dressings as just, if you want to just drink salad dressing, but it doesn't enhance the food, you're just drinking salad dressing, you know?
Yes.
And it was like a totally different way of tasting things.
Yes.
But we have, as a society, we put a lot of salt, and and salt's a preservative, and heaven forbid you get some of the things at the supermarket, the amount of
Mm.
chemicals in there's like a list this long. And so I do tell clients, don't count calories or carbs. That's not important. Count the chemicals. If
Yes.
you want potato chips, you can find a bag that says salt and potatoes. Get that,
Right.
you know
Yes. Get that
yeah,
one.
yeah. So it's really, our taste buds have been altered so much. And like if you go without sugar for a long time and then you taste a piece of fruit, it's like decadent,
Yeah. I remember like even lettuce was
Yeah,
sweet. I was like,
yeah,
oh my God, lettuce is sweet? What? Like
yeah,
this is so sweet. What? You
yeah.
know? And
It's
in
it's amazing.
Ayurveda, yeah, in Ayurveda, we talk about like cooking as a ritual, and like just like make your kitchen as an hot like a hotel, like you just like you're there, you're cooking, you get your music on, you get like your candles on, you get your taste, like you cut everything, you smell, like when you're cooking you're actually starting to eat at that moment when
Yes.
you're cooking.
Yeah.
And to make that moment a ritual, when you go
Yeah.
ahead and sit with your meal, it's even easier to make love to that meal and to enjoy
Yes.
every bit of it because you've put so much effort in your meal instead of like taking something from the freezer, put it in the microwave and like just like go at it while you're watching Netflix. It's like the energy in which you are as you're eating, it's also influencing the way you're gonna take in those nutrients. and
Mhm.
and I really like that, to just like be able to cook something together. And when I bring my kids in the kitchen with me, they're like, the way they taste the food, it's like they're so proud, they're having fun, like this is like we did those pancake, it doesn't matter what it is, but to
Right.
put your hands into the process, to smell those spices, to smell like it cooking, like it just activates everything in your mouth. And this is the first step of eating. And so
Yeah.
there's so many um things around eating that can just be soothing in a way that is not just like putting so much stuff in your mouth,
Yeah.
like fooling yourself, like you're actually fooling yourself.
Right, right. Yeah, definitely. It's interesting too when you're talking about all that is it makes me think of when you watch a movie where somebody has just become a chef, they are really making it's almost like they're making love to that food
Yeah.
that they've got in the pan, and and they're doing all these things, and it's like, that's not easy to adopt
Mm,
because usually you're rushing from here to there. But I will
yeah.
say we have a microwave. It's unplugged and in the garage,
Right.
in case we ever change our mind. But we don't microwave anything because that's really just nuking there's taking all the nutrients out. So we don't
Yes.
use that at all. And it does slow down the process if you're going to heat up some leftovers, because then you got to put it back in the pan. You got to do all that. But in the end, it feels good that you're doing something for yourself.
Yes.
And so I'm definitely going to remind myself of this when it's time to cook dinner tonight, that I put on some music and I make it a celebration, a ritual, so
Yes.
that I can really hone in on all the nuances. Because I do it when I sit down to eat. I did a little demonstration the other day of just doing the 20-minute meal. That's what I try to
Yes.
help people, because I've been a hairstylist for, I don't even want to tell you how long. And we tend to, just devour
Oh,
our food
yeah.
really
Yes,
fast
yes,
because
yes,
sometimes
yes.
we only have a couple of minutes if we have that. So sometimes
Yes.
it's a little protein bar or it's something. And so I've been working on changing that so that I can be there with my food. So I do the 20-minute meal, and I did
Yeah.
start with I had to set a timer for 5 minutes, and it's like, if I can get 5 minutes out of this meal, that's good. So it's one of those things that it's a process. You set a goal. This is what I'm going to do, and that's what you do. And so I take a moment of silence and
Mm.
prayer right before I eat. And there's a reason why they say a blessing before the food. Your food even
Yes.
tastes better. It
Yes.
nourishes your body better. So there's these things that people do, and sometimes they think it's only to honor God, but it is also honoring this food, this sacrifice that this plant made for you. Or if you're a carnivore, it's this animal that
Yeah.
gave up its life for you. It's honoring all of that. And when
Yes.
we can start looking at food as a way to honor our bodies, then, oh man, is it going to be a delicious life.
Yes, and even if you're just doing this once a week, it doesn't matter. Like, just allow yourself, like on the weekend when you're not working, just set yourself up for success and cook yourself something that you're gonna enjoy. Put those spices in, like just
Yeah.
explore, like smell, like bring those senses alive while you're cooking, and the whole experience is gonna be so much different.
Yeah. It
Shut your
changes
screen.
everything. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
shut your screens when you're eating. It doesn't, like, just be present for that moment. Not like, I'm not saying do that every day and this is like a principle and you have to do it,
Yeah.
but just like allow yourself to just like try it.
Yeah,
Just
and do
try
it
it.
incrementally, and
Yeah,
then, and if you really like it, then you can adopt it on more days, and
exactly.
over time, you'll find that you enjoy that life better than the
Yeah.
other one, and you can let it go. So it's really important to just get in touch with the essence of your emotions and your heart and your taste and your smell and even the sight, put
Yes.
all of
Yes.
those things
Oh,
together
yes.
and live a life instead of rushing through it.
Yes, and learn to know yourself at that
Yeah.
moment, Get back to that relationship with yourself. Like, do I love this spice? Do I like this meat? Do I like this? That how does that make me feel? Like my husband just earlier this for dinner, for lunch actually, he was cooking that meat. And he was looking at it and he was like very unappetized. Like he was like, I really don't want to put it in my mouth, And I was like, well, why would you? Like, it doesn't matter. Like you cook it, like you don't want to eat it. It's no worries, Like just set it aside for another day. It doesn't matter,
Yeah,
If you're doing it
because
and it doesn't
if we're
make.
in tune with our bodies will tell us exactly what they
Yes.
need. Yeah,
Yes,
yeah,
and then he ended up enjoying his meal, and he got back to me and he was like, "Oh, my meal was so much like better without that meat. I'm so glad I didn't put it in there." I was like, "Cool," like
yeah, yeah.
like it's sometimes it's just small things like that that makes you enjoy your food better.
Mm-hmm.
and to just keep on bringing more awareness into that, and be like in that moment, that present moment with your
Yeah.
food.
When you can make decisions from an empowered place.
Yes.
And it's like we were saying earlier, there's been many times that even though I know, that sweet thing might make me feel a little weird, a little bit later. Maybe I can't sleep or, I get a little mood swing from it, but my mouth's watering and I really want it. I
Yeah.
can choose at that moment to say, am I willing to endure that for this? And if I am, okay. And you
Yes.
give yourself permission to make decisions based on what you choose and not what someone else has chosen for you.
Yes, exactly. I do the same with sugar because I don't eat a lot of it. And sometimes I will eat some, and my family, like, they will know, like, instantly that I ate sugar because I just start to speak really quickly.
Yeah.
I will laugh a lot, like I'm high on sugar, and like my oldest daughter will like be like, "Are did you eat some sugar, mom?" And I'm like, "Yes, yes, it was very good. You want some? You want some? Yeah, it was amazing. You want some?"
Like a little drug addict. Here,
Yes,
here,
yes,
little child.
take it, take it. I'm just like, I feel like I'm on coke almost, like it's just like so crazy because I'm not used to doing
Yeah,
it. So
yeah,
everyone knows when I actually ate some sugar, and
yeah,
to do it like consciously, like I know, and I'm gonna laugh about it because it's fun, because I'm not doing that every day and my body isn't used to that. So when I'm doing that, let's make it like a party, like
yeah,
it's your birthday party, and I hate some cake, and let's have fun, and let's put some music, and let's like spend that over, like, that
yeah,
energy that is in mine, but it's showing up in my body right now, so let's move through it together
yes.
as a game,
Definitely. I think if we could gamify a lot of this stuff, it would make it a little
Yes,
easier to figure out what to do.
exactly.
And to me, the main thing is for people to understand that it's not their fault that where they are, but to have knowledge now, if they continue, that is their fault.
Yes,
And so you can either choose to stay where you are and take ownership of it. It's nobody's fault but mine. And this is what I choose to do. I choose to be, however much overweight that I am. I'm just choosing it. And I'm going to own it and I'm going to be it.
yes,
Or now you can say, there's something that I can do to make things better. And you can make that choice too. And so either way, you're making a choice. Just let's make it on purpose from here on out.
yes,
And, instead of making it by default, because a lot of times that's what we do. We just make it, we think not making a decision is making it somebody else's fault, but it's still ours.
yes, yes. So to finish, I have like this. I really like to do like a recap of
Okay.
like an advice or something you would tell someone that is very unsatisfied with their relationship with food. Like, what would be your advice for a person that is like that right now?
Well, I guess my main advice would be to ask for help because, like I said before, you most of the time you can't see what your shit is when you're in it. But if you're not in a position where you can do that, there's different free materials that you can access. But
Mm.
like I had told that one client to start making a log and figuring out what was affecting her, noticing that, it could have been that steak she had 2 days ago that had her stomach upset today, and your mood and different things, and just see how everything is actually working in your life. And then it's easier to make a decision um, of what, or a choice of what you want to do from there. If you
Mm.
if you want to make a change, then my where I went to my coaching school, they said small hinges swing big doors. So it's the little decisions we make every day that affect our life. And so what is one thing that you can do from here to have a better life? Whatever that may be, start there. And like I said, when I decided to do that half marathon, I couldn't even walk to the mailbox. So my first training was get to the mailbox, just get
Mm.
to the mailbox, just get to the mailbox. And then it was get to the next mailbox, get to the next mailbox. And I did that until I was actually, I walked 4 miles every day. And on Sundays, I was walking 13. But in the beginning, it would have seemed so out of scope. I could not have done it. So it's find a little thing that you can do to make a change and
Mm.
start there.
I love that. Thank you. Thank you, Vickie, so much. Thank you. It was amazing.
Thank you. I've enjoyed it.
All right, so to close off this amazing interview, I'm gonna give you 5 takeaways that I had while I was doing it. So the first one is, so if you want to change a food addiction, you have to be ready to step outside your comfort zone. This is very important to know. Like, that's the first step, right? And then the second takeaway will be that it's so important to understand the need that you're trying to fill behind this food addiction. The third takeaway that I would give you is that you don't have to go back to the traumatic event that might be rooted in that addiction to heal. You can actually just do it in the present. The fourth takeaway would be to take the time to, rediscover your relationship with food and to like go on a date, right, with your food. That's like so fun to do, and it's just like, yeah, makes it more relatable, you know. And the fifth and last takeaway will be to remember that you are in control of that. You always have the choice of putting something in your mouth or not, and to put something that makes sense for you in this moment, and to do it with consciousness. So these are my 5 takeaway for this week, and stay tuned if you're a mother and you're looking for another workshop. I'm going to do another one that's going to be free coming up in December. I'm going to keep you posted on the date. And so, yeah, that's it. Leave your comment. And if you have some takeaway, just like drop them in the comments. Reach out to us if you need something from Vickie. She'll be happy to help you. And see you in the next episode.